I get it, you're staring at a stack of trolling motor options and wondering if you're about to drop $800 on something that will just sit there while you chase the next bite. The fear of buying the wrong motor is real, especially when you factor in the extra hassle of wiring, mounting, and that dreaded learning curve before you even hit the water. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's walk through the Ulterra the way a serious freshwater angler would, and see if the promises line up with the day-to-day reality. First off, the biggest selling point here is the auto stow feature. You know how many times you've had to wrestle with a manual motor that refuses to retract, especially when the weather turns sour or you need to haul the boat onto a trailer? The Ulterra's motor can literally press a button and pull itself back into the hull, then push out again when you're ready to fish. In my experience, that convenience translates into a real time saver on busy mornings when you're juggling bait, gear, and a crew that's already impatient. It also cuts down on wear and tear because the shaft isn't constantly slammed against the transom by hand. If you're the type who likes to chase the same spot all day, the iPilot Link GPS integration is another practical win. You can set a spot lock on a promising structure, let the motor hold you steady, and then walk the line without worrying about drifting. It's not a substitute for a dedicated chart plotter, but for a 24-volt freshwater setup it's more than enough to keep you on target. The ability to record your path and replay it later is something I've actually used on a lake where the wind shifts midday. The motor automatically corrected my heading and saved the effort of constantly rechecking the compass. Now let's talk thrust. 80 pounds of push is solid for a 24-volt system, and the 60-inch shaft gives you the clearance you need on most mid-size baseboats or duck docks. On a 14-foot boat I've tested, the Ulterra could hold a steady 7 miles per hour in a 6-knot current while I was trolling a spinnerbait. That's the sweet spot for covering water without spooking fish, and it felt consistent across a range of depths. If you're planning to go after larger species like pike or smallmouth in a bigger lake, you might need a 30-volt motor for that extra bite. But for typical freshwater bass and panfish, the 80-pound thrust sits comfortably in the good enough zone. The built-in Hummingbird Mega Down imaging transducer is a feature that separates the Ulterra from a lot of its competition. It projects a clear, narrow cone directly below the boat, letting you see structures and fish silhouettes in real time. I've used it on a lake with heavy vegetation and was able to spot a school of shad hiding under a submerged log, something I would have missed with a conventional down-looking sonar. The downside is that the imaging is limited to the area directly beneath the motor, so if you're casting far off the boat you'll still need a separate fish finder. But for the typical move slow track stop bass fishing pattern, having that instant visual cue right under the trolling line is a genuine advantage. Who should consider this motor? If you own a freshwater boat under 20 feet, run a 24-volt electrical system, and value hands-free features like auto stow and GPS spot lock, the Ulterra fits like a glove. It shines for anglers who spend long days on the water, need to make quick adjustments, and appreciate a motor that can essentially think for them when you're busy hauling a catch or dealing with a sudden weather shift. It also makes sense for those who have already invested in a Minn Kota iPilot Link or are planning to, because the integration is seamless, no extra adapters, no fiddly firmware updates. Who might skip it? If you're on a tight budget, the price tag could feel steep compared to a basic manual motor that simply provides thrust. Likewise, if you run a high-performance 30-volt system or fish primarily from a larger boat where a 120-pound thrust motor is the norm, you'll likely outgrow the 80-pound capacity. The auto stow mechanism also adds a bit of mechanical complexity. A few owners have mentioned that, over many seasons, the motor can develop minor alignment issues if the mounting bolts aren't kept snug. That's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to keep in mind if you prefer low-maintenance gear. From a value perspective, the Ulterra's price is justified when you look beyond the headline specs. You're paying for 3 things in one package: a motor that deploys and retracts on command, a GPS system that can lock your boat in place without a separate controller, and an integrated sonar that gives you immediate feedback on what's directly under your lure. Each of those components could cost you an extra $150, $200 if bought separately. The trade-off is that you're relying on a single unit for all 3, so any failure can take down multiple functionalities at once. That's why